Good evening, everybody, and welcome to AC Connect. We are so happy to have you here today. And just before we hop into our presentation, we're just going to go over some of our housekeeping technology bits and pieces here. So just as a reminder, we do record these AC Connect sessions. So if you would like to rewatch it, you can do that. We post it on the Facebook page as well as our website. And if you want to share it with your colleagues, feel free to do that as well. If you don't want to speak, that is okay. If you would like to still participate in when we ask questions, or if you don't have a microphone and you still want to participate, you can definitely type in the chat box. And that chat box comes to us and we can ask your question for you. If you would like to speak and you do have a mic, please put your hand up, and when we get to that point in our presentation today, we can call on you and then unmute your mic, and we would love to hear from you. We'll hop on here to the next slide. And we have a very, very special guest today that's going to be joining us. We'll introduce her in just a moment here. We're very, very excited to have her. But we're just going to go over a little bit of our purpose and our protocols for being here tonight. So just once again, why we do this, we want to hear from early childhood educators about what they're experiencing. We want to create a forum to share, a safe space where everyone is supported. And we want to ensure that ECs know that AC is their voice and that we want to hear from you, because truly you are the reason why we do what we do. So protocols, again, this is a safe space. Please be respectful. We love your feedback. We prioritize the connection. Another thing is going to be important for tonight's session is we don't have all the answers. We want to hear from you. We want to talk about it, but by no means do we have the answers, all of them for you. If we don't have them, we are happy to try and find them if we can. But the important thing is just us being together and being able to share questions and maybe even getting answers from one another and colleagues in the community. And once again, there is a question box there if you would like to share your questions or tell us what's happening, share your feedback. We always love to hear from you. All right, so in our agenda tonight, we have a few, well, I think quite a few AC updates tonight, and then we will pass it over to our special guest speaker, Jennifer Usher, who's going to be talking on AC's response to the new ELCC regulations that just came out. All right, so this is a very exciting thing for me with AC, is we're very, very excited. You're hearing it here for the first time. It hasn't been released yet, so we're doing a bit of a debut here tonight. AC Connect, our conference, will actually be turned into a virtual wellness retreat. So we do recognize that educators have had such a stressful year this year. We have, are inundated with webinars and so much PD, and there's tons of great information out there. But what we really wanted to do is take this time to really take care of ourselves. So our conference this year is going to be with a little bit of a twist. So save the date, April 23rd will probably be the evening of the 23rd, and then the 24th, that's a Saturday. And we would love to get together and spend the day just focusing on ourselves, our mental health, and really celebrating the great work we've done by taking care of ourselves. Another exciting piece that AC has out at the moment is our 2020 Dr. Cheryl Brown Award of Distinction is out. So please, nominations are open. Please, if you know somebody in the community that you think that you would like to nominate, we would love to have to see that nomination. We'd love to hear from you. Some of the criteria involves being involved in the community, having a commitment to the field. So I believe it's over 10 years of experience in the field, and then innovation. So there's a lot more of that information on the website, and I can definitely attach a link inside of our chat here as well in just a moment. So go on over there. We would love to get some nominations in and get those special educators recognized for all the hard work that they've done and the commitment that they've made to the field of early childhood education. Just one more note about the conference, though, as nominations are open for the Cheryl Brown Award, we're also taking a call for presenters for the conference. So if you know of anybody that you think would be a benefit to our wellness retreat, we'd love to hear from them as well. And both the save the date poster and the call for presenters will be going out tomorrow. So that's just a little bit of another piece of information for everybody. I know, Leah.
Yeah, to remind, I mean, this was almost a month ago now, crazy, that this happens, the critical worker benefit. So this is just the recap of the information we have about that, the email at the bottom in terms of how to get information about that, and hopefully as many people as possible will claim that $1,200, because educators certainly deserve that after all of the hard work that has been, just so many things that our community has done. So make sure that you check that out. There is information on the AECEA website, and you can use that information at the bottom to get more information through government as well. So just one of the many things that has happened this month. And lots of information. And the same with this, the relief funding. So that's that sort of next phase of funding for programs to support sustainability throughout the pandemic. So again, this is the information that AECEA has, and then there's the those links at the bottom. This is also all available on the AECEA website. So if you want to go there and get that information, but just to make sure that as programs you're accessing that as much as you're able to, because that funding in terms of keeping everybody viable and in the sector is super important. And the federal piece. So we've heard lots about the federal government and their, you know, desire to think about universal childcare, or sort of a national program for early learning and childcare across Canada, as well as money going directly towards the workforce across Canada. So there's a couple of ways that that's going to happen, and CCCF and national partners, so AECEA included, has been involved in meetings over the last couple of weeks to make sure that the communications and submissions to the federal government are, you know, in provinces are in line with one another. There's some consensus about what the main priorities are, so that direction can be given to the federal government around what is the best way for this to really support the systems that are already existing, and to really make those in the best that they can be. So we're really looking at, you know, in terms of Alberta, there should be that money coming from the bilateral agreements over the next little while. And it's just a matter of what exactly that looks like, how those priorities will be outlined to government, and what the expectations on the province will be. AECEA and the Alberta Leaders Caucus have been working behind the scenes here, I guess, really talking about what messaging we want to give to the provincial government, how can we make the best proposal about how this funding could be most impactful for educators and programs in our province towards supporting a system of early learning and childcare rather than just a whole lot of programs, as well as supporting educators directly with, you know, retention and, you know, recruitment to the field, and feeling like educators want to stay in this as a career and a profession. So this isn't, I mean, right now we don't have a lot of information about it, but certainly keep your ears out, and be involved wherever you can around giving your voice towards how this federal investment can look. I think the next, I may have already talked about the next slide. Yeah, I kind of did, so we can just keep moving. There we go. So really, this is kind of where we're at right now, that AECEA and ALC have presented some priorities to provincial and national governments, and that conversation is going to continue as we hear more from the federal government about what the conditions of that funding are, and how, and hopefully have some influence over how our provincial government negotiates that funding with the federal government. So it's something that could make a really big impact to our field, so we're hopeful. And now we get to the main event. Lisa, do you want to introduce Jennifer?
I can, for sure. So we're very, very excited to have Jennifer Usher here with us tonight. Jennifer was on the board of AECEA, but since has stepped down and is doing some very, very important work for advocating for early childhood educators in Alberta. We're so grateful for the work that she is doing. All of the timely posts that you are seeing coming out of Facebook and the responses that is Jen behind all of those. So like I said, we're very grateful for all the work that she has been doing for the educators and are so happy to have her here with us tonight. So take it away, Jen.
All right, well, thanks so much for having me tonight. I am going to start sharing my screen. Is it okay if I share mine? Okay, I am the presenter. Okay, can you see it? Yep, okay. Sorry, I have two screens, and so Leah and Lisa are on the one to my left. So when I look over there, that's who I'm looking at, because I like looking at their friendly faces all the time. Yeah, so Jennifer Usher, I've been in early learning and childcare for, I think, about 20 years. I started out at a childcare center working with a little guy who had a profound hearing loss as a signing assistant, and just kind of fell into the role of coordinator of the Medicine Hat and District Childcare Association in 2009, and was on the Accreditation Governing Council for quite a number of years, and then joined the AECEA board. So I had to step down for a little bit just so that I could do some contracted work with AECEA, but I'm super excited to be able to do that and to be able to serve the early childhood educators here in Alberta. So tonight we're going to look at the response that was written about the Amended Act and regulations, and we will also have some time to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts and the questions you still have. Like Lisa said, remember, we're not experts here. We're just here tonight to share some information, maybe some new perspectives, and we don't have all the answers, but we're definitely willing to reach out and try to find out for you. First of all, I just want to reiterate how much AECEA believes that early childhood educators have the most important job in the world. We believe that ECEs are the heart and soul of a high quality early learning and childcare system. We believe that ECEs should be well educated, well supported, and well paid. And we believe your work should be valued by your employers and peers, by other professionals, by the families you serve, and by society. And there should be public and political recognition of the value of early childhood educators and the important work that you do. This is one of the pictures we had taken during the creation of our videos. So this is a local early childhood educator, I think up in Edmonton. The theme I hope you see running throughout our response to the Amended Act and regs is grounded by AECEA's vision and mission. AECEA is working to build a future in which well-qualified, well-compensated early childhood educators are respected as professionals, valued for their important work, and supported in providing high-quality childcare for Alberta's children and families. Here's our mission. So AECEA does amplify the voice of early childhood educators by advocating for higher educational standards, better wages and working conditions, and comprehensive system supports. Our mission is to transform Alberta's early learning and childcare workforce into a recognized profession. We advocate for the respect, support, compensation, and influence that early childhood educators deserve. So the 4 steps in AECEA's 10-step framework are interconnected. I know this might be some review for some of you who are familiar with our work, but it really does guide the work that we did for the regulation review submission. So I just wanted to remind you a bit about it. So step 1, or one of the steps, is talking about raising the educational requirements for early childhood educators in Alberta's licensed childcare sector. And so that would involve a couple of things: new certification levels, bridging and pathways for educational equivalencies to achieve their ECE certification. We also would like to see ongoing professional learning being mandatory for all early childhood educators in the regulated system. We would like to see infrastructure developed to support the new standards for education and ongoing professional learning. So even though we're raising those sort of expectations, we definitely know that that support needs to be there to make this kind of thing happen. And then definitely raising wages and looking at workplace supports is really high on our radar for sure, because we know that's what is needed. So you know that on February 1st, 2021, the Amended Early Learning and Childcare Act, which used to be called the Childcare Licensing Act, and its accompanying regulations came into effect. Bill 39, the bill introducing the changes to the Act, had its first reading in October, and then over the next couple months, it was debated in the legislature, and the Act was passed and received royal assent in December. So now I'm sure you're all trying to figure out how to respond to the new regs. When we, realized that the Child Care Act and regulations were going to be opened up, AECEA started working a couple of years ago on their regulation review submission. And that can be found on our website. Maybe somebody will pop the link into the chat box if we can. So when the Child Care Licensing Act and regulation opened up for its consultation this summer, we partnered with Alberta Leaders Caucus to rewrite the regulations with 3 policy priorities in mind. We talked about certification levels, ECE 1, 2, 3, and 4, including formally adopting the term early childhood educator, which I think we did definitely accomplish that, because I do see that running throughout the Act and regulations. We talked about raising minimum education levels to necessitate a diploma in early childhood education, including a higher level for those with degrees in ELCC. So if you did get a degree, we were proposing the idea of that level 4. We also talked about that ongoing professional learning being mandatory to achieve certification. The regulations would also include the infrastructure to achieve this. So when we're talking about that, we're talking about support, some kind of funding, some kind of infrastructure that could be built so that that could happen. And that would really be similar to how teachers currently operate, and also social workers. I did a presentation down here in Medicine Hat to the students virtually, and we did talk about that whole process of professionalization. And the instructor is a social worker, and she has that background. She knew when social workers, it wasn't a profession, and they went through that whole process. So that's where we're trying to get to today. And one of the things they have to do is that ongoing professional learning. So the last thing is really ensuring a solid pedagogy. So that's talking about embedding the curriculum framework, flight, into the regulations. And we thought all of this could be done in a real phased-in approach. We did have quite a number of other recommendations, so you could definitely read through those if you like. So there were lots of other stakeholder recommendations, other groups like ours that put forward submissions. And we do have those on our website if you'd like to check them out, but they do include Alberta Early Learning and Care Leaders Caucus, Alberta Family Childcare Association, Childcare Association for Resources to Administrators, Children First Eagle Ridge Nest, Get Outside and Play, Public Interest Alberta, Edmonton Council for Early Learning Care, the Matarp Foundation, and the YMCAs. Those are to name a few, right? I'm sure there's more out there that put in submissions. But there were certain themes that really ran throughout those stakeholder submissions, including ECE certification and education, like AECEA was recommending, ongoing professional learning, adoption of flight. Those are the same as AECEA's priorities. But in addition, there were other things talking about legislation that protects the rights of children, including the right to high quality early learning and childcare. And that's recognized in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Children. They also really talked about the quality of early learning and childcare being enshrined in legislation. So moving away from that custodial care model, just supervision of children, to a model with clear principles outlining what high quality early learning and childcare is. So we wanted to see reducing red tape and regulatory burden on businesses, not lessening the ministry's capacity to oversee and regulate childcare programs and services in ways that protect and ensure the health, safety, and well-being of children and their families. There was a lot of talk in the submissions about recommendations from the report to the Minister of Justice and Solicitor General Public Fatality Inquiry, that's a long title, issued by Judge Hawks in 2018. And that report was in response to the tragic death of 22-month-old Mackenzie Wolfsmith in unlicensed private care. So they wanted to see that those recommendations were really put into place. Other things stakeholders were talking about was increasing regulation for unlicensed private care and adjusting ratios of unlicensed care to be lower than regulated day homes, than licensed day homes, I guess is the new terminology. They also talked about changes to outdoor play, including the amount of space, providing enhancing outdoor materials, surfaces, shade levels, mandatory outdoor playtime, that type of thing. And then addressing affordability and true accessibility for families. Children's well-being and development is enhanced from participation in ELCC when it is of high quality. And for children to benefit from high quality childcare, they need to have access to a space that works for their family. And the last thing would be sort of touching on that workforce part again, a workforce development strategy with timelines, education pathways, workplace supports, and related funding. So lots of really smart ideas from the stakeholder organizations for sure. So this report, I think you guys, if you've been to the prior AC Connects, would know about. This is the Jane Beach report, and we used this report extensively during the writing of the response to the Act and Regs. We highly recommend you read it over. And someone might put the link to that report in the chat if we're able to do that. But again, it's available on our website or on the website for Edmonton Council. There is also, if you don't want to read the whole thing, there is a summary paper that is available, and we can put that link there too. So, you know, regulations typically address program-related aspects of quality. Regulation plays an important role in ensuring the health and safety of children, and it provides a strong foundation for quality. But regulation alone cannot guarantee quality. Regulation must be supported by policy, funding, parental involvement, stakeholder engagement, support for the workforce, and continual monitoring and improvement. And it must be considered within the context of ideas about the purpose of childcare, and about children, and about their role in society. So this Beach report proposes values and guiding principles that could guide the development of a quality system and serve as a preamble to the regulatory framework. It identifies and defines the system and program-related factors that contribute to quality, accessibility, and affordability. And it proposes several regulatory measures that the Alberta government could adopt to improve quality. So definitely have a look and check that out. So this is some information from our response to the Amended Act. So we have two papers that were put out recently, the response to the Act and then the response to the regulations. So this is again available on our website to read. Has a lot of great information, and I'm just going to go over a little bit of it tonight, and in a minute we're going to have time for a bit of discussion with all of you. So AECEA recognizes the government's hard work on the new legislation. The government had a mission to reduce red tape, and there will be some streamlined processes that will benefit operators. AECEA believes an Early Learning and Childcare Act should carefully consider the meaning of quality early learning and childcare, the foundational aspects of ensuring quality provision, a vision and goals for early learning and childcare, quality and access principles, planning mechanisms, physical and social infrastructure, and recognition of a qualified ECE workforce that can ensure quality. So first, in the blue there, we do really agree with the addition of early learning to the title of the Act. AECEA knows that children's early learning and childcare needs are interdependent and intertwined. So Alberta has now followed the lead of other jurisdictions in using terminology that reflects this interconnection. While early learning was added to the Act's title, the addition of early learning was not included in the definition of childcare in the Amended Act. The focus does remain on the supervision and care of children. So the next key item I just wanted to point out that I'm sure you guys know about now is the new facility-based license. So it does consolidate the previous 5 licenses, which were daycare, group family childcare, innovative childcare, and out-of-school care, and preschool. And so those are all kind of combined together. And then now there is a family day home agency license. So AECEA believes that this will help families better understand they're using a licensed childcare program. I know on Facebook down here in Medicine Hat, we have some Facebook groups where people look for childcare, and you know, people were using the term licensed to talk about day homes anyway. So I do think that's a good step in the right direction. And then I kind of want to talk a little bit about back to that Wolf-Smith inquiry and Judge Hawk's recommendations. The changes that seem to line up with Judge Hawk's recommendations include when conditions are placed on a license, the program must inform parents directly. Parents will be informed of stop orders and safety concerns in unlicensed care, and the addition of conduct requirements for ECEs to qualify for or maintain certification. So those 3 things are definitely things that seem to be kind of in line with Judge Hawk's recommendations. Regarding oversight of unlicensed private care, Judge Hawk's called for more than merely regulating the size of unlicensed care. He emphasized the need to reduce risk and increase protective factors. The Wolf-Smith inquiry spoke to the need for a fundamental shift in how the Ministry of Children's Services regulates both licensed and unlicensed childcare. Despite this, there is little change for unlicensed day homes within the amended regulations. There was an opportunity to require unlicensed care to have fewer children in ratio compared to licensed. This recommendation came from a number of stakeholder organizations, including the Alberta Family Childcare Association, but it wasn't included in the amended regulations. So we do eagerly await policy documents, including the amended Family Day Home Standards Manual for the sector's licensed family day homes. The inquiry also referenced the need for significant operational and staffing changes to accompany any legislative changes. So AECEA understands that these operational and staffing changes must include investments in licensing staff resources and supports, and ensuring ECEs are well supported with assistance and mental health supports as necessary. So the last one there is the Minister of Children's Services and government staff have indicated that quality will be embedded into the legislation through 2 new sections called the Principles and Matters to be Considered. So this is how they are saying that they have incorporated the previous childcare accreditation standards. We do find that the principles and matters to be considered in the Act are written quite broadly. They don't necessarily address all of the accreditation standards. Individual programs and agencies will be responsible for figuring out for themselves, with some assistance from licensing officers, hopefully, to address how to address those principles and matters to be considered in their program plans. This does put the onus on programs and agencies and limits the government's responsibility in quality provision. So I'm sure some of you have already seen some of this. Here we have the principles that talk about safety, security, well-being, and development. Also talking about choice and accessibility for families, engagement of parents and community. And then in the matters to be considered, we look at having care and play experiences that support children's development and learning, children being protected from all forms of physical punishment, physical and verbal abuse and emotional deprivation. Then there's some talk about diversity in terms of social or economic vulnerability, and then children, the abilities of children being respected and valued, the children's familial or Indigenous or other cultural, social, linguistic, and spiritual heritage being central to their well-being and development. care being appropriate to the child's mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical needs and stage of development. And then it does talk about involvement and engagement of parents and guardians, supporting accountability and monitoring. So those are the pieces that will have to be included in program plans. And I'm sure if any of your directors, you're probably starting to work on some of that. I guess we are going to turn to Lisa here for a minute, and she's going to guide us through a little sharing time here.
Thanks, Jen. That was absolutely amazing for presenting all that information so far. We just wanted to open up the floor here and hear from you. Let us know how are you going to be addressing the principles and matters to be considered in your program? What education and support will you need to address these matters in your program plan? Do you have any questions? Do you have some ideas that you've had that you would like to share with other participants? We'd love to hear it. And what support do you require as an early childhood educator to embed quality in your program through these principles and matters to be considered? So like we said in the beginning, we don't necessarily have all the answers, but together we would love to come together as a community and just chat and kind of find out how's it been going with your new program plans. So if you do have something to say, if you want to put your hand up, Laura will be able to call on you and then you can unmute and ask your question. We will also keep an eye on the question box in the chat and be able to ask your questions that way as well. Let me take a look here. Laura, are we seeing anybody yet?
I have, oh, there's one. From Melanie Nickel. We have created the Alberta Preschool Advocacy Association to help support preschools through these changes and needs. That's awesome.
That is awesome. Melanie, you should shoot Laura a quick email tomorrow with some information about that, because I'd be very interested, and I know lots of people down here in Medicine Hat would be too, because I know that's a big area of concern. How are you feeling about your program plans in terms of preschools? How do you see that fitting and that type of thing? Do you want to maybe talk out loud? I know not everybody likes that.
Okay, Melanie, you're unmuted.
I have to laugh because anybody who knows me absolutely knows I love to talk out loud. So it
I kind of thought so.
It comes to me. So we were struggling with some of the changes with the licensing. We felt like preschool was sort of a bit on the back burner. So not only did we want to sort of work together to make those changes and hopefully work in partnership with AECEA to be part of that loud advocacy piece for ELCC in general, but also supporting each other as we're working on program plans. Why do we have certain policies in place? What does it mean with the new regulations, and supporting each other? So we're hoping to have that up and going. We're working on our mission statements and stuff this week. But two of our strong advocacy pieces are going to be the lack of preschool subsidy, even at a prorated level for families. We know that right now we're a very crucial piece of childcare for families, those working from home and those who can't afford full-time care or need full-time care, as well as that piece that includes the wage top-up. We feel like we also deserve that wage top-up for the hours in ratio. We do the very same job that our amazing Alberta daycares and out-of-school care programs do. And we all advocated when out-of-school care was not receiving it, and then when out-of-school care was only receiving 100 hours a month. You know, so we're hoping that those other groups will also support us to be equally recognized in the field. So we're very excited, and I think that together we'll be able to get through these new regulations.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you again about the new group that you're starting up. We can definitely put you in connection. And I like that idea of coming together about your program plans as well, right? Like, I think programs should be sitting down with their educators, but there's no reason you can't network with other directors to try to work through some of it. We do stuff like that. We haven't thought of that yet. Down here in Medicine Hat, we've done stuff like that in the past, shared policies and networking and stuff, and it really works really nicely. But you may have given me an idea for my group down here.
Well, and I'm sure Angela Mestel can attend to my strong feelings for this field.
Yes.
And we're not looking to put preschool ahead of anyone. We're just looking to be an equal part for equal work, but also not only in advocating for preschool, I think we advocate for all early learning and childcare programs. And I think that we're also showing a good role model. We know that families are going to go where it's the best fit for them for childcare. So this group of preschool owners and teachers really feel that we are not in competition with each other. Families will go where it's the best fit for them, and we respect those decisions. All of our programs are very, very different from each other, but especially through COVID, why are any of us recreating the wheel or stressing some of these topics that people have already addressed? I think when we work together, we show how strong of a field we are. And yeah. I think that's really at the core what's most important with this, is that we come together. Many years, Mark Cutler and I tried to create a one voice for Alberta, and it was hard. But when we realized that we're all in the same boat, some of us are in a yacht and some of us are swimming, but if we all can recognize that we're part of the same storm, I think we just become stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly AECEA's idea as well. We want everybody kind of to come together so we can be that stronger voice for sure. Great.
And
well, thanks so much.
The new documents that have come out, the new documents that have included sort of the reiteration of what the changes are and what it looks like for us, those have been so incredibly helpful. Many of the programs have both preschools and daycares in them, but even for those of us who are in preschools, we're still connected to the daycares. And so being able to talk some of those things through with your support with those documents have been fantastic. So we just wanted to thank you for that. It's been amazing having you guys in the field. So thank you.
That is so fun to hear. That just made my whole day or week or month. Yeah, because you know, it has been a labor of love, those documents. The AECEA board and Alberta Leaders Caucus, you know, we've been slaving over those, and it's so good to hear that you're using them and that you find some value in the work that we were doing, posing the questions and some suggestions of things to think about. So thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. We appreciate it.
That's awesome. Okay.
Laura sounds really quiet to me. There she is. Yeah. Oh, that's better.
Sorry. We have another handout. Jesse Collings. You've been unmuted. You may need to unmute on your end though if you wanted to speak.
There, I'm unmuted on my end. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
perfect. I work in out of school care. I manage a number of programs. We sat down as a group of coordinators this week to discuss the program plans and how we were going to do those. The frustrating thing we're having right now is we know the first drafts are going to be due in May, but we still don't have the guide that they're saying, okay, they're going to be due in May, but don't do anything until you see the guide. I have 6 to write. So I'm wondering, has anybody else started their program plans, and how are they addressing all these new things that are being thrown at us? I'm a former accreditation validator, so I'm very familiar with accreditation and all the indicators, but putting it into the program plan is a little daunting.
Did you want to say something, Lisa? I thought for a second you looked like you might want to. Yeah, absolutely. I think that it would seem daunting, and that's interesting coming from somebody who was an accreditation validator. Yeah, I thought that there was going to be program plan templates. So is that what you're talking about?
Templates? No, we've got the templates, but there's a guide that that's coming out to help us use alongside of the program plans. So I do see a lot of the accreditation indicators in the program plans. However, waiting for this guidebook to come out, we don't want to write anything yet until.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't want to write things and then it's different from what they are suggesting in the guide, but it would be helpful to have that, because I'm sure lots of people are sort of chomping at the bit to get it going.
Well, we all want to get them done, right? But we don't know how to start.
Yeah, but maybe we can see, Lisa, do we want to see if anybody else has suggestions? Because I like her idea about the coming together as a group and working together, but I wonder if others have worked on it yet.
Well, I'm seeing others are also having some of the same questions, where they're waiting on documents, or they've just gotten new licensing officers, and so they don't have either a template or the guide yet. So I think there seems to be quite a few people here in the chat that are in a similar boat, where they're still trying to figure out what's the best next step and how to move forward with this new information. But that's good to know. I think that you know, as AECEA, we can definitely maybe see if we can find some answers for you. Like I said, we don't have them right now, but maybe we can do some investigating and see if we can maybe find a little bit more.
I'll touch base with Jerry at the ECD branch. We just met with her a couple weeks ago, and she talked to us a lot about the program plan stuff and some about the risk-based licensing. And so maybe I'll just touch base with her, shoot her an email, and see what's up with this accompanying. It's the accompanying guide to the program plan template.
And the program plan template is available on the government website. People,
okay,
if they haven't received it from their LOs yet, they can go directly to the website and access it there.
Awesome.
And you had mentioned risk-based licensing. Have they not? We were informed by our licensing officers here in the central region that they've changed that to support-based.
Oh, they're like the terminology?
Terminology's been changed. They didn't like the negative tone of risk-based. So now it's been changed to support-based.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to ask about that, because I am going to talk in a minute. We're going to move on to the regulation changes, and that I hadn't heard that yet. So that's interesting.
Yeah, we were informed of that about a week or two ago.
Oh.
It's so exciting, Jen. I love how everybody has a different piece that they get to bring forward, and how we're definitely are stronger together as we learn from each other and navigate this together. So
yeah, absolutely.
I know we do have a couple questions in the box that we're going to try and get answered, but I also know that Jen has some really good stuff coming up in her presentation that I don't want to miss out on. So Jen, do you think we should keep going, or did you want to keep on with the questions?
How about, what if we took one more and then we move on, and then if we can do the questions at the end, maybe. I just want to make sure that everybody who's here for our hour gets the information we wanted to share. So does it sound okay with one more?
Sure. Let's do one more with the hands up. I'm going to go through, and all those who have texted in responses, if I can answer them, I will answer them in there. Otherwise, we'll address them once Jen has done the rest of her presentation. We can go from there. Okay, so Bernice Taylor, you've been unmuted if you have a question or comment to make.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I'm just going to go back to, we had our sector meeting this week. So strength-based and support-based is definitely the change of direction for that risk assessment. It's still risk in part of their evaluation, but their approach is about strength and support, which I think is definitely an important message to hear. It kind of takes the fear factor out of centers, and I think that was important. We also talked a lot about the program plans, and a lot of us have been getting in discussions with Christine Villeneuve. A large number of centers get on these calls probably every second week, and we've created, or Christine has created, a platform. It's out of Google Docs, and we're all going to share our program plans. We're actually going to upload them, share them, let everybody take a chance to read through them, because the language, when you start reading through these program plans, is very different than the language we've ever had in our program plans. And I think it's just so important for centers to share that. And I know at my own center, and the message from our licensing officer in that meeting was that every single person on the floor needs to fully understand the program plan. So this is no longer directors building program plans. It's taking that to the floor, to your staff, and as a team, we're going to be building that plan together. They have to be invested to make it work for them, which is a lot of work. I was told June 1st is the date for childcare to have our draft, and September 1st is the final. So we've got a little more time. I don't know if they've extended that from May to June. I know I heard May originally, but now they're saying June 1st. So that extra 30 days, I think everybody certainly is appreciative of. When I talked about the principles and matters, they keep talking about they're going to start doing training modules in March. So in March, they will start bringing us together, and they're going to, like they said, licensing is learning it at the same time and capacity as us, which is excellent because we're all walking together forward. We're not trying to catch up, and I really love that approach, actually. And they've said that they're just going to keep walking us through this. So I don't think a guide necessarily is going to get dropped out. I think what's going to happen is they're going to slowly take it apart piece by piece, and as a team we'll work through it. We'll start working together, submit things to our licensing officer, get a bit of feedback, and I think that's going to make a big difference. So I think don't panic. I think there's lots of time to prep for this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bernice. So Lisa's
Sorry, Jen, we missed what you said there.
Oh, was I muted? I wasn't. Oh, I must have just clicked out. Yeah, thank you so much, Bernice, for sharing. It's great to hear this back and forth of what other people have heard and sharing that information. So I think we'll keep going, and then hopefully we'll have time at the end for a couple more comments and discussions. So our response to the regulations can be again found on our website. So when the regulations were last reviewed in 2008, the certification levels were changed from a numbered system to child development assistant, worker, and supervisor, as you guys all know. They have now been returned to the numbered system with an addition of early childhood educator added to the end of each level. ECEs are the early learning and childcare sector's most important asset, and yet other than the title change here, we don't see much recognition or respect. Really, there is minimal mention of early childhood educators in the Act and regulations. I guess I kind of just jumped right in. I didn't really have much of an introduction to that part, but these are just a few of our things that we sort of are highlighting from the regulations. So that is something that is concerning to us, because we definitely thought that there would be something in the Act or regulations that talked about the value of early childhood educators. So that's something that we definitely sort of noticed. Another thing that we wanted to point out was about the changes to the ratios and mixed age groups. So as you know, children 4 years and older are now grouped together rather than 4.5 years and older. Mixed ratios are determined by the majority of children in the group. So we do know that research shows children fare better in programs with lower ratios and group sizes. That was in the Beach report, and other research has talked about that. We also know that when striving for quality, we can't look at regulations in isolation of each other. So for example, higher child to staff ratios might make sense if staff have a strong educational background, but they might be harmful if staff have little education. So while Alberta's ratios are similar to those across Canada, our ECE qualification requirements are for the most part lower. So ratios and group sizes really do affect ECE morale and retention, therefore influencing the quality of care children experience. The regulations state that mixed age groups will be allowed for children 19 months and up with a ratio based on the majority of the children, like I said. So this does mean that we could see very young children in the same room as mostly 4-year-olds. These children are all at different stages and require the time, attention, and opportunity to play, develop, and learn at their own pace and without distraction. It will require careful attention to plan on the behalf of ECEs in programs for a high quality experience to happen. So just some things to consider. If you look at our response to the regulations, we do have in the different categories under ratios and mixed age groups, we do talk a little bit about things to consider. So I would highly recommend having a peek at that, even if you just look at that little blue section under each heading when you're writing your program plans, because the ideas in those little sections, things to consider, are really based in research and best practice. So it may give you some ideas of things you might want to think about. The amended regulations have removed the restriction that programs cannot provide overnight care. So that means now they can. There are a few other jurisdictions that have non-standard hours. However, many of them have not been sustained. So there are certain factors that play into the success of programs offering non-standard hours care, and we do detail those out in our document. Also, there is a really great research paper about non-standard hours care that I referred to in the document that I would highly recommend if you are thinking of offering overnight care. Challenges in that paper that they talk about include an additional administrative burden, financial viability, access to qualified ECEs willing to work overnight, and much more. So definitely have a look at that, at our response, you know, on the surface, but then if you're really gonna dig down into it, I do recommend looking at some of that paper that I mentioned. And then risk-based licensing, I'm not sure if that term will be changed, but is changed here, but I used it here. So they do talk about, under a risk-based approach, high quality facilities with consistently low infraction rates will have longer intervals between inspections and a simplified inspection process. This will give licensing teams more time to spend with programs requiring additional assistance to support the children and families in their program. So to date, there are no other details given about this approach, because I think they're just working through it right now with the contracted agency that's developing that for them. AECEA recognizes how difficult it is for the government to address all stakeholders' needs and the challenges in embedding quality into legislation when the government has a mission to reduce red tape, streamline processes, and recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. While streamlining processes should allow program staff to spend more time with children and families, AECEA wants to be sure that the children's health, safety, development, and well-being is at the forefront. That's just must be top of mind. So this is where we see a bit of an area of opportunity. So Jane Beach writes that many interrelated elements determine quality. They can't be considered in isolation of one another, kind of like I just mentioned about the regulations. She says that research shows the single most critical factor affecting the quality of early learning and childcare programs is the knowledge, skills, and stability of the early childhood workforce. During the regulation review, the ministry asked, what regulations are preventing childcare providers from expanding and improving their operations? The resounding answer to this question is the qualifications of ECEs. You all know ARC. They're an organization that provides accessible programming to the early learning and childcare service sector. And they have said that the inconsistency of qualifications often means that when their support ends, programs and educators are unable to maintain strategies introduced because common foundational knowledge is lacking. So it might lead to increased issues with compliance, high staff turnover, I can't talk anymore, and recruitment and retention issues. AECEA knows that well-qualified, caring ECEs are the prime determinant of a quality childcare system, and education is the prime determinant of qualified ECEs. Although the Act and regulations do not include a reference to ECE education, the minister has indicated she has heard from many stakeholders that the education of ECEs is of vital importance. The changes in childcare document does talk a little bit about this, saying that they're moving the qualifications into government policy so that further work can be done in the future. And from our talks the other day with the ECD branch, that is the intent. They didn't want to be locked into anything because the act and regs, once it's in, it's really hard to change. So that's why it was moved to policy. So we believe that this is an opportunity, that there should be discussion about ECE education and certification, including raising educational standards, requiring mandatory ongoing professional learning, and adopting Alberta's Early Learning and Care Curriculum Framework, FLIGHT. So we believe that the work of ECEs should be given the utmost respect. You are tireless, dedicated professionals that create places of vitality alongside children, families, and communities. It is important that you are seen as a legitimate and vital part of the early learning and childcare system that serves children and families. So we do see this as a spot that more work could be done, and we are going to be pushing for that for sure. Okay, Lisa's, I think, going to jump in here.
I am. Thank you so much, Jen. That was absolutely great presentation. We do have a couple more minutes here before we end. So I'm not sure, Laura, if you have some questions lined up, we can do the overflow, or if you just want to share what you're thinking about the Amended Act and regulations, regarding ratios, mixed age groups, overnight care, outdoor play, the risk-based, or how we heard that the new terminology that might be coming out, staff qualifications moving to policy. Whatever questions you have, either type them in the chat or raise your hand, and we will try and get, I know we only have 3 more minutes here tonight, but we'll try our best to get to as many as we can. If you do need to leave, we definitely respect and honor your time and want to thank you so much for being with us. But if you would like to have some of your questions answered, we are happy to stay here and get some more conversation going for a little bit longer. So I will pass it over to Laura now.
Okay, we are going to go through the ones that have their hands up from the last round. Anita, Bruce, you've been unmuted. If you have a question or comment to make, it looks like you just have to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, good. I've just been listening to everything, and I just have, I guess it's more of a request than a question. I had taken the flight course, and then I reached out to get a pedagogical leadership follow-up, and or get the rest of the staff on the possibilities for practice, because that's what licensing is recommending we do if we can't, because we can't all get into flight, right?
Yeah.
So we were turned away. There's just no funding for us.
And, and Anita, that's for preschools again, right? So yeah, I wonder.
Sorry, I wrote to the minister as well, and I haven't.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if when Melanie connects with us, we could connect with that new group and see if that's another sort of part that they'd like to talk about, because that doesn't make sense to me. If you're able to take the flight course, why you couldn't have a pedagogical partner from ARC, or be able to take some of that possibility. Is it possibilities for practice?
Yeah.
Yeah, that it doesn't make sense to me as usual with that.
Yeah, and it was, like I took the course, and it was an excellent course. But when you're in a smaller center, you don't have that support of like, are we following? Are we coming along board to really reflect this in our program plans? Because that's the purpose of all this, is, to put in what I've learned. But if I don't have that mentor to come in and check, well, I'm on my own.
Yeah, exactly. And we've heard that, that professional learning with that mentor or that critical friend who can kind of ask you those hard questions, or or pose things for you to think about really is what changes practice. So I do think that's something we should follow up on.
Good, thank you.
Yeah,
That's
for
it.
sure.
Great, thanks.
Nina.
Awesome. Okay. Moving along. Aliana Hernal, you've been unmuted. If you have a question or comment to make, you just may need to unmute yourself.
Okay, hi. I just have a question about the overnight care. What does the ratio looks like for overnight care?
I think if I remember correctly, it's talks about like the sleep ratio, like that you use with napping. So I know that was some of our questions, because that kind of can be a bit concerning, right? Because you can have quite a few kiddos with one educator. So that was definitely one of our questions. I think it has to do with the sleep ratios, but yeah, does anybody else know that offhand?
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to follow up and say, based on what I saw, I didn't see anything specific to overnight care as far as ratios.
Yeah, I think there is going to be some stuff coming out about overnight care, because at the town hall tonight, the minister was saying something about the expressions of interest and working through those, and it seemed to me that those had to do with overnight care as well. So there might be more information coming. I would refer you to look at our response to the regs, because I do talk about that overnight care, and I think it says something in there about the ratios and how we must be careful with that, because you would hate to have something happen, an emergency happen, and have one educator with, I don't know how many, 20 kids or something, right? So definitely, thanks for that question.
And also, just for are they gonna be? Is there gonna be like specific object like or space that's gonna be different? Like, because we use the like the pull out like blue sleeping beds. Are we gonna have like a specialized beds for overnight care? Is still gonna be changing? Because I know a nap is good for kids for that particular like hammock looking plastic sleeping. But however, if it's overnight care, it might provide back problems for kids if they're gonna stay there for like hours of sleep. Is there gonna be that importance for those, like you have to have a certain equipment to make sure the kids are gonna be able to be comfortable in their sleeps?
Yeah, that is another really great question too. I definitely like to know about a bit more about that as well. I do think we're going to hear more about that from the minister as they start approving those expressions. But you're right, that was something that kind of concerned me too, is, how are, we have to think about children's well-being first, right? So where they're sleeping and that environment for children, we really need to be careful with that. Yeah, we'll definitely follow up about that.
Amazing, thank you so much.
Thanks, yeah, good question. I also was thinking a little bit about, how long are children in a program too, right? So if they're there overnight and then the parent needs to go home and sleep, what happens? Those kinds of concerns. But so did we have time for another one, Lisa?
If we do have another one, I'm just going to see, I don't know if Laura's been keeping track of the hands up.
Yeah, we've got one left here for hands up.
Okay.
So Rox Langevin, you've been unmuted. If you have a question or comment to make, you may just need to unmute yourself. Maybe not.
Oh, I can hear you a little bit. I might have to turn up my volume so I can hear you better. Sorry, I don't hear you.
Okay. Rox, if you do have a question or comment, if you can shoot us an email with it. AC's email is just info@aecea.ca, and I'll make sure one of us gets back to you on whatever your question is, and we can go from there. Couple of more comments in the question box, just so that I can list them out and everything. And a big thank you, Melanie Nichols. She's giving me her email to connect those who are wondering about contacting that group. And I'll send that out to people following this session who have requested it. And same thing, thank you to Bernice Taylor as well for being willing for me to connect some people with you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, that's the thing we've really found here down in Medicine Hat is how having all those connections makes such a difference. And I like that we're doing it province-wide now.
And Melanie's saying that she thought she heard that overnight care was high at 1 to 20, but wasn't 100% on that. So I think we'll do some follow up on that, and we'll find out for sure from government on what it looks like.
Absolutely.
Okay. I think that's it for now. And then, of course, if people do have continued questions and stuff, feel free to send the office an email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd like to thank Laura too, because somebody thanked me for my work, but Laura is behind the scenes doing lots of amazing work at AECEA as well. And I lean on her a ton. So I'm going to do a shameless plug here for the Association of Early Childhood Educators of Alberta. We hope that you value the work that we are doing. And please know that we are a member-based organization that needs your support to continue doing this work. We are almost solely funded on member fees. And if you believe in our work and support our mission and vision, we hope you will join us. We do have different options for membership, including a monthly installment plan if cost is a factor. You get a lot of great benefits from being part of AECEA, but really my top one that I've put there is that you're backing an organization that's working on your behalf as an ECE. And we really are in those government meeting rooms virtually and doing lots of work behind the scenes to try to improve our system and to make it, you know, as best as we can for early childhood educators. So that's my shameless plug, and I really hope you'll go to the AECEA website and check us out and become a member.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. That was awesome. And thank you everyone for your comments and your willingness to share and to connect with one another. Like Lisa said at the beginning, our goal of this is really to build those connections. I think our sector has been fragmented and we often just work and work and work like crazy in our spaces, but it's so awesome to hear that people are willing to connect with one another and that those connections are starting to happen. So thanks so much for joining us tonight. We will be having another AECEA Connect session in March, so keep an eye on your email for that announcement and stay connected. We would love to hear from you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.